President-elect Joe Biden says reshaping immigration policy is one of his top priorities, signaling major changes to the Department of Homeland Security. On Friday, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration to fully restore DACA, which protects undocumented immigrants who were brought to the U.S. as children from deportation. It also allows them to work legally. But immigration advocates warn the threat to the program by the Trump administration is not over yet. For more, CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez joins me. Hi, Camilo. Great to see you. So how will this judge's ruling impact immigration policy moving forward?
Hi, good afternoon, Tanya. So this order by a federal judge in Brooklyn requires the Trump administration to fully restore the DACA program. What does this mean? Well, it means that the program must be restored to the way it operated when President Barack Obama created it in 2012. That means the Trump administration must temporarily resume accepting and adjudicating first-time applications from immigrants who qualify for DACA on paper but who are currently not enrolled in it. They also must grant 2-year periods of work permits and protections from deportations instead of the 1-year period proposed by the Trump administration in the summer, after the Supreme Court said that it could not immediately terminate the DACA program. So that is what the Trump administration has to do, and it has until today, Tanya, to post a notice on its website to alert the public of these changes. But, and this is the very important point to note about this litigation, is that while this is a significant victory for advocates and for DACA recipients, currently, there are Republican-led states asking another federal judge in Texas to declare DACA unlawful and to terminate it. And there's a hearing scheduled for this case in about 3 weeks. So that could decide the fate of this program weeks before the incoming Biden administration takes power.
So then what would you say is the biggest hurdle immediately facing President-elect Biden when it comes to immigration reform? What's going to pass his desk first?
I think there are 4 main hurdles. Number 1 is the scope of the Trump administration's immigration policies. President Trump has issued more than 400 different executive actions on immigration, ranging from restrictions on asylum to dramatic cuts to the refugee program to expanded deportation priorities for immigration and customs enforcement. Number 2 is the situation at the border. We've already seen, Tanya, a rise in apprehensions along the U.S.-Mexico border, especially of unaccompanied children. A crisis there could hinder many of Mr. Biden's intended pledges to undo many of Mr. Trump's asylum policies, but it also could hinder any legislative solution, for example, for Dreamers, for DACA recipients, in order to place them on a pathway to U.S. citizenship. Third, I think, is litigation. Just like we saw the federal courts halting many of Mr. Trump's immigration policies, we could also expect Republican-led states and conservative groups to challenge Mr. Biden's more liberal immigration policies. And fourth of all, I think we can also expect the Biden administration to have a difficult time not just undoing Mr. Trump's immigration policies, but also separating itself from many Obama-era practices on immigration that sparked controversy among progressives, and that I think a lot of people do not, on the left side of the aisle, do not want to see implemented right now. That includes the detention of migrant families at the border. That includes deportations. As remember, we've discussed in the show, the Obama administration deported a record high of 3 million immigrants.
Right. Camilo, can you give us a little insight into the Trump immigration policy, which is scaring immigrants away from federal assistance like food stamps, immigrants and their children, which in many cases are, legal U.S. citizens, away from federal assistance like food stamps, and putting a lot of pressure on other aid sources. Can you explain what's going on there?
Sure. So in 2019, Tanya, the Trump administration proposed the so-called public charge rules. Basically, the rules make it easier for government officials to reject applications from green cards from immigrants who the government determines rely or could rely on public benefits like food stamps, government housing vouchers, and Medicare's Part D prescription drug coverage. And so this policy, which was implemented earlier this year after the administration was able to demand the Supreme Court to intervene in several lower court cases, has, according to several studies, prompted many immigrant families to forego certain government benefits, including financial help, food insecurity help, and the very important thing to know about this, what advocates call chilling effect, is that many of the families who are foregoing these benefits, Tanya, actually are not directly affected on paper by these rules, because either the children are U.S. citizens who are not subject to this rule, or they're undocumented, and undocumented immigrants are not subject to these green card requirements. It is only for legal immigrants who are seeking to become legal permanent residents.
And it's having a chilling effect. All right, well, Camilo Montoya-Galvez, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tanya.